Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Bill Diggs, Executive Director of the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust, and we're in for another treat in regards to our topic of the day is always Black prosperity and wealth. I've got a good friend of mine who's come to this city in a major way. He is a very adept leader. You know, years ago, Miami-Dade County had the presence of mind to create an independent economic development organization, and it's called the Beacon Council. And over the years, they've done a lot of things. Their major role, though, from my perspective, and of course you're going to hear from our guest and he'll tell you more, is to attract, recruit, and retain businesses to Miami-Dade County. They're the little engine that could. And I really have enjoyed, this young man since he's come to our town. Rodrick Miller, President and CEO of the Beacon Council. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Man, listen, I can't tell you how glad I am, brother, that we're having this conversation. You know, and a lot of folks don't know, you and I have been working together, you know, even before you came here.
That is absolutely right.
Right?
That's absolutely right.
And we just came back from Chicago, you know, and I before I get into that, you know, take a few minutes, man, and tell us who Rodrick Miller is.
Well, thanks for having me. As you said, my name is Rod Miller. I'm from a small town in South Carolina of about 450 people. And I start with that because I think the values that I learned in that small town are kind of the essence of who I am. Yeah. Hard work, respect people, love God, and be a person of integrity. And so I'm from a small town, but I've been doing economic development now.
Okay, so now listen, I'm an Augusta, Georgia boy, right?
Okay.
And I'm from a small city, but I've been in Carolina before. So tell people where in South Carolina. We want to make sure we give those people some love.
No, that's great. I'm from a small town called Manning, South Carolina, in Clarendon County. Yeah. So it's the low country. It's about halfway between Charleston and Columbia.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm from. But you know, I've been doing this work for about over 20 years. And what I really love about economic development is that it's really about people. It's about how do you ensure that people have access to opportunities. And I think that's kind of a core pillar of what it means to be, you know, the U.S. of A. You know, that this is a place where people have access and can honest days pay for an honest day's work, and that's why I do what I do. Yeah. But I've been, like I said, I've been doing it 20 years. Academically, I have an undergraduate degree in international business from St. Augustine's University in North Carolina. I studied abroad in Mexico and Spain. As an undergrad, I did a master's in finance as a Fulbright fellow at El Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. Right. And I also have a master's in public policy from Harvard. So that's academically. But over the last 20 years, I've had the privilege of working in some of the most dynamic markets in the country. I started my career in economic development in Phoenix. I was in Phoenix, Arizona for 6 years.
You know, you mentioned that last night, man. I didn't know you spent time in Phoenix. That's the one thing I guess I found out about you yesterday. I had no idea.
Yeah, I loved living in Phoenix. I was there in the early 2000s to about 2009, and it was one of the fastest growing markets in the country at the time. So I got to work on a lot of interesting projects there. Did the Foreign Direct Investment Program, redid the incentives for the state of Arizona. Then was in Louisiana, both at the Baton Rouge area chamber, but started the Economic Development Organization in New Orleans. Okay. So I led that for 4 years, the New Orleans Business Alliance.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that was following, 5 years after the storm. Orleans, it was great. New Orleans was, I felt very fortunate that they took a risk on me, At the time I was 31 years old when I had that opportunity to set up that agency. And we brought about 20,000 new jobs to New Orleans and really set up a lot of the infrastructure that you see for a lot of the growth that's happened over the last decade there. And then I was in Detroit. I was in Detroit, Michigan. I was the CEO of the Detroit Economic Growth.
Phoenix?
Yeah.
New Orleans?
Yes.
Detroit?
Detroit.
Man, you all over the place.
Well, part of what I realized early, unfortunately, in economic development, it's one of those things you don't need 10 economic developers in the market. You need like 5.
There you go.
And so in order to be able to continue to grow professionally, move up, you had to move out. But the other side of it is I really recognized a few things early on. One of the things I recognized is that the nature of economic development was changing across the country. So, of course, the demographic shift to more people of color, and that when you look at the field of economic development, most of the people in economic development work were older Caucasian men.
Yeah.
So this demographic shift was very uncomfortable for the country, and it continues to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I was able to get in economic development at a time where I got to learn kind of the historic and traditional way that it was done, but figure out how to really recognize where the economy is going and the importance of people of color in this economy. So if you look at all of those markets from Phoenix to Detroit to New Orleans to Puerto Rico, now to Miami, they've all been markets predominantly comprised of minority populations.
See, you know, you're the poster child for what we're doing in a large way, right? Because, you know, here's the thing that I love about you and your mindset and your understanding of all these various cultures. You've lived in them. You know what I mean? And so as we're out there doing this work to recruit companies, you can really do I understand how you feel thing.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people all the time that it's a big deal. My good friend is there. It's a big deal to be able to move with the change. And I'll be honest with you, man. Gosh, Miami needs that, right? I mean, you know, I love Miami, but the people that are coming here with the depth and breadth of experiences is what is going to make Miami great. Miami has been hidden from the world for a long time, other than some place to come ski and hang out and go to great restaurants and go to a party. But no one understands the tremendous amount of opportunity that exists here. And you having come from all these different places, really, man, are a poster child for what we want for Miami to be.
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel very fortunate. I mean, most recently, before I came here, I was in Puerto Rico the last 4 years, CEO of Invest Puerto Rico over there. And so I don't know a better place to come back into the mainland United States from Puerto Rico than Miami. So it feels like a very natural transition. But part of the beauty of where Miami is all of these changes are happening. The entire country, the entire globe is having to respond to them, but Miami's in a better position to respond to it.
There you go.
And so that's what makes it really exciting. And I think Miami's in a better position for a few reasons. One is strategically, our location really puts us, between the United States and Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're actually navigating both the economic and cultural changes and challenges in real time.
Right.
The other thing that's interesting about Miami, as a community, it's only about 130 years old. Many of these other places that are having to respond to these changes are much more recalcitrant, old, and kind of trying to figure out how do we make these changes. But Miami has the kind of dynamism and youth as a market, which allows it to figure out how to change and how to change with the times.
See, I think that's it. I mean, it's funny because, as you and I have been, starting to kind of move around this country and tell people how important this market is, our ability to be able to be nimble, man.
That's it.
It's a big deal.
That's our greatest advantage.
It really is. And I attribute it to almost like the athletic move. In order for you to understand how to win, you gotta move, right?
That's right.
I mean, because if everyone's playing the other game, you got to play to your strengths. So, Rod Miller, married, father of how many now?
4 children.
4 kids.
Yes, indeed.
And so, you told an interesting story, man, about your daughter and wanting to go back to Puerto Rico. And after she got here, she was like, I'm never leaving, right?
Yes,
this is ideal for her. And then the wife said, we're done now.
We're done now.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
That's an advertisement, dude.
No, it was wild. So my now 10-year-old daughter, before we came here, we were leaving Puerto Rico, and she said, you know what, I've spent more than half of my life in Puerto Rico. It's not fair for you all to make me move to Miami.
At 10 years old, she's got that kind of wisdom, right?
Yeah, she said, this is not fair. This is just not right. And so most recently, about a month ago, I said, well, maybe, I thought she'd be excited. Hey, for spring break, maybe we'll be going back to Puerto Rico and spend a week there because we still have our home there. And she said, what would we do that for?
Right.
I said, what would we do that for? I'm good.
Listen, we need to put on a commercial. We need to bring on this show, man.
Absolutely.
I love when kids preach the value of our city. So listen, so you and I have created a great partnership.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for really embracing it, man. I mean, you and Julio PD and the rest of your staff, you really have wrapped your arms around the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust, and it's built a new day in our relationship. I can't tell you how grateful I am.
Thank you.
Because, listen, I've said before, Black business needs to scale in Miami. And there are many reasons that it hasn't been that way. But we know that there are certain industries, man, that are going to drive the future of Miami. And so, the Beacon Council, Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust, along with the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce and Career Source, we've decided to partner up, right? And take this wagon hoe and go to these other cities to recruit people.
That's right.
To come to our communities. We just left Chicago.
Yes.
And by the way, for those of you all that are listening, we participated. This was the Rod Miller show.
Oh, please.
No, I mean, I got to give you credit, brother, because, honestly, the folk that you knew and the relationships that you had and the way that you crafted these days, we were hoping to come away and say we had a good time and let's figure out how we can build on it. And we got some real opportunities. Yes, so talk about your vision with all of this stuff.
So this is great. So it was my first week on the job when I got a call from you and I think Julio Petey had set it up on our team.
Yep.
And the call was, hey, you know what? We've got a good relationship with the Beacon Council, but we'd like to, we've already working on this idea of going somewhere to figure out how do we recruit African American businesses to the city. Yeah. And as we started to talk about it, and we went back and forth, and I said, I think we should think about Chicago. Yeah. And my thinking was a few things. One is Chicago has probably one of the most sophisticated Black business ecosystems in the country.
They do.
Chicago, Atlanta, and a few others.
Right.
But when we look at kind of the factors that are driving that investment, Chicago has a strong financial services sector. Yeah. And in Miami, one of our top sectors for recruiting companies is financial services. Yep. So as we thought about it, I said, we want to get some businesses that are sophisticated, but that align with the direction of our economy already. And so Chicago just seemed to make sense. Yeah. And what was great about the trip, we had a few different goals in mind. I think one was to identify, we know there's an affordable housing issue. Yep. We know there's a lack of Black developers, a lot of Black developers in the market. So we said, how do we actually connect with developers and housing developers and affordable developers and those sorts of things? Because we realize that as we continue to build out Miami, it's going to be important to have a diverse mix of developers working in our environment. And part of it is not only can we bring some of those developers here, but we can figure out how to partner with local developers. The second thing that we thought was really, really important was to focus on private equity firms, hedge funds, those sorts of groups, because what we know is that they have portfolios of companies.
There you go.
And so, for example, we had a great meeting with Cleveland Avenue, which is an organization that was founded by Don Thompson, the former CEO of McDonald's. Yep. And we're already working with a couple of those companies that had Miami ties to figure out how we can help them scale and grow here. Yeah. And they're focused particularly on Black and Latino founded firms. And what better place than Miami for those types of companies?
See, right, because I think that what it does for me, it elevates the most important part of what we do, and that is to have a real intellectual discussion around financial wellness in our community, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, Martin Luther King said it some time ago. He said, that civil rights we thought was the first revolution. Economic rights must be the second. And so we're now on to something that I believe is a secret sauce, right? Which is taking what you just said and expanding the footprint to really include Black businesses. Because when you take a look at Miami, man, I mean, there is such a depth and breadth of companies in this financial services market and fintech and all this stuff. And we know that that's where we're going. And by the way, we're well suited to get there, like you said before, because of the youngness of our community. But I was blown away by some of the meetings we had in Chicago, right? I mean, even on yesterday, we had one of our Chicago companies fly down here and meet with us. They are serious about Miami, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, they're serious about Miami. There's an interesting thing. So I would think about Miami Black businesses as really kind of getting beyond this first phase. So we've got some Black companies in Miami that have got some size that have started to scale, but they're primarily in kind of traditional industries. Yes. And so we want to continue to support those, but I think part of the evolution is we've got to figure out how to get into some of these more disruptive industries that have a higher hockey stick kind of curve in terms of growth opportunities.
There you go. And that's exactly correct. And by the way, by doing it that way, the thing that, because again, we're going to be off next quarter to somewhere else, right? Yeah. And I think that honing our pitch and having people to understand that we do have access to some of the relationships that can help these firms to get where they want to go, I think is a big deal for me, right? And I say for me in a very selfish way because listen, it doesn't fall on a deathbed for me to know that I can't do this without you. I mean, I absolutely can't.
Kind.
No, I mean, I'm serious because listen, partnership is a key. Like people say, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, then take people with you.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And I know that our success in this venture is everything. One, because relationships matter.
That's absolutely right.
They do, and I'll tell you the conversation that we had with folk like Quentin Primo.
Absolutely.
And then Lanier Richardson from
Chicago Trend.
From Chicago Trend.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have been in the room with them had not they been so forthcoming and have it not been for the relationships you had with them.
Yeah.
And so they respect
thank you.
the groove, right?
Yeah.
And so, we are looking at opportunities right now.
Yeah.
To have a deeper dive of a discussion. And by the way, these folk bring a particular set of business understandings that we don't just want for them to come and do business. We want for them to come and help us to teach as well.
That's exactly right. And the reality of it is all of these are good people, but let's be very clear, they're capitalists. Yeah. And so as capitalists, our businesses are also, our local Miami Black businesses and other businesses are also capitalistic. Yeah. And so we've got to figure out how do we actually create an environment that allows everyone to make money. I think so many times in these conversations, people are afraid to say that. No, it's our job. We want people to make a lot of money because if they make money, there's an opportunity to hire local people. There's an opportunity for more local businesses to actually plug into those supply chains. So I see our work, and you said you couldn't do it without us. We couldn't do it without you because the reality of it is MDEAT's mission is very specific as it relates to focusing on, the Black community. Yep. And one of the things we know that despite all of Miami's growth, there's a tremendous disparity between how Blacks in Miami perform economically and how everybody else performs, and we got to fix it.
We got to fix it, and we're hell bent on doing that. I mean, because listen, our organization really sits on a four-legged stool. We've got legislative research, right? We have economic development, we have housing, and then we have youth services. Yeah. And the thing that we've been trying our level best to do every day is get better at tying all of those together because we got to build a community. And I think about, the auspicious start of our organization. Matter of fact, there's actually a play coming up that's going to be talking about the Arthur McDuffie Riot and kind of what got us here. And so we're building a brand respective of our community and what we need to do, around growth. So your building that you're in, the other day, matter of fact, we were there yesterday, we made a meeting with this client. And the growth in downtown, man, the crane count is amazing. I mean, what do you think about all this?
So this is the first time I think in 150 years or something like that, where there's a city in the United States that has more skyscrapers being built than New York City. I think New York City right now at a certain height, I think New York City's at maybe 13 or 14 and we're like 15 or 16. So the tremendous growth that we have is largely a byproduct of where we sit in the global economy. We've got all of the capital from Latin America and the Caribbean that wants a soft landing in the U.S. That's coming to Miami. We are the #1 destination for that investment. We've also, because of our tax environment, have been able to attract a lot of the value and capital from places like Chicago and from like New York. And so that building that we see is the byproduct of that influx of external capital. You and I can give each other $5, $10 back and forth all day long, but that doesn't do anything until there's really some external infusion of capital. And what's good about where we are now is that Miami has that capital that's coming in. Now our challenge is going to be, how do we ensure that that capital that's coming in doesn't put the market so out of whack that the companies and businesses and people that have been here can't afford to be here. And we see a little bit of that happening, but that's going to fix itself over time if we're thoughtful about growing the economy in an inclusive fashion. One of the things I I'd love to hit on is, so we say we want to grow the economy in three ways. We want it to be sustainable, where it acts the right way or the same way every time, and also sustainability in terms of the built environment. We want it to be inclusive because we know that every person who's not participating in the economy, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of where they live, represents a loss to the economy, and we want it to be competitive. And so competitive, we want to champion things that fundamentally make the economy better.
Right.
This partnership with MDEAT, one of the things that I've committed to, and we haven't really talked about this, but one of the things that I've committed to and I've told our team is that in every one of our strategies, we're looking at how do we think about targeted urban areas, and we're looking at inclusion. And so whether it's our business attraction strategy, or whether it's our retention of existing companies, or whether it's even how we bring people to the market, we want to make sure that our efforts reflect the breadth of who's in this community and the community we want to have.
All right. I want to switch gears for a minute. Every day, the key to growth is development. I know, because I spent a lot of time with my vice chair, Julio Pidi, and he's helped me to understand, and I'm embracing this, that we know that you don't get all of your money from the county, right? There is always got to be a march toward profitability through developing relationships and raising money.
Absolutely.
And we want to help you to do that.
Oh, well, thank you.
And so talk to me a little bit about how you're doing with that. What's your development plan? I mean, you have events that are coming up that folk can be a part of to make sure that we do better than keep the lights on, but that you are flush to make sure that you can take the next trip with us to New York, right?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we have a budget of a little over $5 million a year, about $5.5 million a year, and about a little over $4 million of that comes from the county. We've had a contract with the county since 1985 to provide economic development services. The rest of that budget we get through private investors, private companies, and we have investment levels ranging from about $5,000 to $100,000, and what that allows. And we invite companies to be a part of it, and this is the value of it. Our goal is not to be a business development arm for a company. Now that said, companies, when they come and become a part of the Beacon Partner Council, do they get business? They absolutely get business. Sure. And you're in the room with the decision makers of the major corporations, ranging from the hospitals to the university leaders to the barons of industry. But the reason why we invite companies to participate and invest in us is to be a part of developing and executing the strategy that makes this economy tick. So what that means is every time you get a call from the Beacon Council and we invite you to a meeting, we have a few meetings that are kind of more social and to share information, but by and large, if we're inviting you, it's to figure out how to get a deal done. It's to figure out, we've got this company that has challenge X and we think you can help us help them land here in the market. We've got this problem related to housing affordability. We're trying to figure out how do we tackle it. We've got this question now of the influx of Haitian immigrants. How do we ensure that those folks have access to jobs and can participate in the economy in a thoughtful way? So the value of joining the Beacon Council is not just the access that it provides, and it does provide a lot of access, but it's also an invitation to be a part of building the economy of Miami-Dade. And so right now we've got a trip to Spain next week where we're taking some of the local businesses. Chairman Gilbert from the County Commission is joining us. Nice. And we've got other leaders that are joining us on that trip. We've got our annual meeting that is in November, which is really our big event for the year, and annual meeting and key ceremony. In our key ceremony, we recognize all of the companies that we've helped over the last year.
Was that a FINA last year?
The annual meeting was at FINA last year.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the key ceremony was at the aquarium.
FINA was nice. It was a very good meeting.
And our goal in that meeting is to say, hey, this is where we're going. These are our strategies. So last year at our annual meeting, I announced a goal. We've got a budget of a little over $5 million for a market like Miami. With the growth that we have, our budget should probably be in the $12 million range. And so last year, I announced at our annual meeting that over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to at least double our budget to $10 million and ideally get it to 12.
There you go. I mean, and that's the kind of aggressive thought that I wanted to make sure that we knew about, because, listen, going online, learning more about the Beacon Council for me and for my folk are key. And I tell you the reason why. When companies are coming here, other than bringing their employees, they need everything.
They need everything,
right? I mean, they need everything, and so. Being in line,
and we help with everything.
That's
we
my
help
point.
with everything.
So being in line with you guys will allow businesses to really be there in the beginning of this, this maturation process that these businesses are going through, getting adapted to this great place called Miami. So your website is it beaconcouncil.org? What is it?
So it's beaconcouncil.com, www.beaconcouncil.com.
Okay.
And I would also encourage people to check out next.beaconcouncil.com, which outlines our strategy for the next 5 years. Next.beaconcouncil.com.
Okay.
But whether it's where they're going to live, whether it's where their offices are going to be located, whether it's market data, whether it's real estate, whether it's attorneys, whether it's financing, we help with all of the above. So, so we invite companies to join us that think they can be, helpful in helping more companies land here.
Well, I'm sure that they can, because it's funny, because, one of my first entrees to the Beacon Council many moons ago was that, I was at an old telecom company back in the 90s, right? And having the help of the Beacon Council to settle down this old firm, it was called MCI at the time.
Oh, I remember MCI.
Yeah,
those were good old days.
Yeah, we were cooking with gas, baby.
Yes,
You talking about good days.
MCI. I hadn't heard that in a while.
I know. We tried to slay the dragon. It was funny. But I remember so well that, we were working with John Anderson and his crew, the Beacon Council, and I'm so grateful, man, that your board and your search committee had the presence of mind not to be afraid to hire an African-American, multicultural, multilingual brother like yourself and bring you from Phoenix to Mississippi to New Orleans to Puerto Rico, and then bring them here, because all the value of all those experiences, man, I think are resonating with Miami. And I'll tell you, as a young man, the same thing that I've told some of the young folk that work in my organization. We can get diversity right here in Miami. If we can't, then it won't work anywhere.
That's absolutely right.
This is the melting pot of the world.
That's
and when I watch you, speak all these different languages that you've got, and I watch you navigate through these different communities, we all have to accept the fact, whether we want to admit it or not, the world is getting brown.
The world is getting brown.
And so if all of us understand capitalism, we move toward the market that is to come.
That's absolutely right. When we understand green and understand that at the end of the day, markets, I want every dollar I can capture.
Yeah.
I want the white dollar, the black dollar, the brown dollar. That's how capitalism works. But if we're smart about it, we're going to figure out that if everybody can actually play in that game, and that's the challenge right now.
There is room under this tent.
There's room under this tent, and so I don't see there being competition with the Latin community. I don't see there being competition. It's about how do we actually innovate and really engage in a way that gives all of our people the skills so that they can play the game. And right now, we're not doing that.
Right. I'm a member of the cigar bar downtown Miami, and it's called Empire, and that's my spot. I mean, I go after work, I smoke a cigar, and it is a coming together of the minds. And one of the things that I love about being in downtown Miami, which is around the corner from your office, right, is that I've become to realize we have more similarities than we have differences. Man, when I sit down with my guy from Colombia, the other guys from Venezuela, and then again, there's another a guy that we hang out with, and he happens to be from Far East Asia, and we're sitting down talking. We can be in the middle of a conversation, and we all center around one thing: how great Miami is. And we realize that many of us are doing business together. They're using the services of the county. And they say, hey, Bill, blah, 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 blah. And they have people come over when they know that I'm going to be there. And it has become, if you will, a beautiful space.
That's great.
I'm so glad you're in my space, man.
Thank you. Likewise. Thanks for having me. This is phenomenal. We're going to do more great stuff together. I'm excited about the future.
We are. So for those of you that are listening, Rodrick Miller, CEO of the Beacon Council, multilingual African-American brother who has decided to raise his family here in our town.
And I'm not planning on moving. I'm going to be in Miami.
We're going to hold you to that. Hey, this has been another installation of Black Prosperity and Wealth in the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
It's great.
Yep. All right.